The night air hangs thick with tension in Phoenix, Arizona. September 17th, 1966. A date that will haunt one family for decades. Dianne Keidel adjusts her blue double-breasted dress one final time before leaving for dinner. At 31, she is a devoted mother to 4 children, navigating the complexities of divorce while trying to rebuild her life. She has no idea this will be her last evening alive. The dinner with her soon-to-be ex-husband Gene goes surprisingly well. They discuss property settlements and visitation rights like civilized adults. Dianne even drives Gene back to his apartment afterward, a gesture of goodwill that will prove fatally naive. From there, she heads to the Amber Inn, where Bob Marlin waits with drinks and casual conversation. Hours pass in the smoky bar, filled with laughter and the promise of new beginnings. By 11 p.m., Dianne is ready to return home to her children. But Gene has other plans. He waits in the dark house, his anger festering with each passing hour. When Dianne's car pulls into the driveway just after midnight, the stage is set for a confrontation that will shatter 4 young lives forever. The argument begins in hushed tones, 2 adults trying not to wake their sleeping children. But rage has a way of escalating beyond control. Dianne demands Gene leave immediately, while he claims ownership of the house with possessive fury. In the hallway, 5-year-old Lori and her older sister Susie creep from their beds, drawn by their parents' raised voices. What they witness next will torture Lori for the next 27 years. The moment Dianne sees her daughters, her defensive posture softens. A mother's instinct to protect her children even in her darkest hour. It is exactly what Gene has been waiting for. His fist connects with devastating force, and Dianne's head snaps back, striking the wall with a sickening crack. She crumbles to the floor and never moves again. The 2 girls flee to the closet, trembling in the darkness as their father's heavy footsteps echo through the house. When they finally emerge, a horrifying scene awaits them. Their mother's lifeless body lies on the pool deck, while Gene methodically digs a hole in the backyard under the cover of darkness. By dawn, Dianne Keidel has vanished from the earth. Gene pours fresh concrete over her grave, creating what he believes will be a permanent tomb. Then he begins crafting his lie. He tells neighbors, police, and his own children that she ran off with a boyfriend, abandoning her family for some man. The story is believable enough. Divorce proceedings, a mother overwhelmed by responsibility, a woman seen with various men since her separation. Police investigate, but find no evidence of foul play. Bob Marlin, who might have provided crucial information about Dianne's final hours, suffers a heart attack and dies the day after their date, taking any potential leads to his grave. Gene moves back into the family home, playing the role of the abandoned single father with Oscar-worthy commitment. But one witness to his crime remains alive, carrying a terrible secret that will eat away at her soul for decades. 4 months later, tragedy strikes again, or so it seems. While Gene is conveniently at a laundromat, fire engulfs the family home. The 4 children are trapped in their bedrooms as flames consume everything around them. 8-year-old Susie leads her siblings towards safety, but 6-year-old Lori runs back for her Winnie the Pooh doll. Susie could have escaped. Instead, she runs back into the inferno. She whispers final words of love to her little sister, shielding Lori's body with her own as the flames close in. Susie dies protecting Lori from the fire, though not before Lori suffers 3rd-degree burns over half her body. 8-year-old Kelly also perishes in the blaze. Only 9-year-old Greg and severely injured Lori survive. Investigators find a melted pot on the stove with the burner still on. Accidental, they conclude. But Dianne Keidel has now lost a wife, who supposedly abandoned the family and 3 children in a tragic accident. Only 2 witnesses to his crime remain, and one is barely clinging to life in a burn unit. A year after the fire, Lori attends a funeral for a neighborhood boy killed in Vietnam. As she stares at Michael's lifeless body in the casket, a devastating truth crashes over her 6-year-old mind. Her father's explanation about the permanence of death and the upcoming burial hits Lori like physical blows. The concept becomes clear to her. Her mother isn't sleeping in the backyard. She is dead, has been dead all along, and her father is the one who killed her. The realization is too enormous for a child's mind to fully process. Lori throws a screaming fit at the funeral, desperately trying to wake Michael up, unable to accept that death is permanent and final. But she understands enough to know that she is now the only living person who knows her father's secret. And Dianne has made it crystal clear through his repeated threats about bringing her into this world and being able to take her out what will happen if she ever tells. Lori grows up in the shadow of her father's violence and threats. She marries, has children of her own, and tries to build a normal life. But the secret festers inside her like a cancer. Every family gathering, every phone call, every chance encounter with Dianne is a reminder of what she witnessed that September night. She lives in constant fear of her father's retaliation, fear of not being believed, fear of destroying what remains of her fractured family. The burns on her body have healed, but the psychological scars run deeper than any fire could reach. The weight of carrying her mother's murder alone becomes unbearable. Years pass in torment as Lori struggles with the impossible burden of her knowledge. In 1993, something inside Lori finally breaks. She can no longer carry the weight of her mother's murder alone. With trembling hands, she walks into the Phoenix Police Department and hands Detective Ed Reynolds a written statement that will resurrect a 27-year-old case. Her letter begins by expressing the great fear she has of her father's violent retaliation. Reynolds is skeptical. 27 years is a long time, and childhood memories can be unreliable. But as he listens to Lori's detailed account, something rings true. Her terror is real. Her knowledge of details never made public is unsettling, and her ability to pinpoint exactly where her mother is buried is impossible to ignore. The challenge is enormous. The family home has been sold years ago. New owners have lived there peacefully, unaware that a murder victim lies beneath their concrete patio. Reynolds cannot justify tearing up someone's property based solely on childhood memories. The search for non-invasive technology leads to NecroSearch, a Colorado organization specializing in forensic geology. Ground-penetrating radar reveals what Lori's nightmares have told her all along. There's something buried in the exact spot she indicated. 6 feet long by 2 feet wide, a grave-sized disturbance beneath the concrete. When jackhammers finally break through Dianne Keidel's concrete tomb, investigators need to dig only 10 inches before finding human skull fragments. Hours later, they uncover the complete skeletal remains in the shallow grave, along with a bra, girdle, and women's stockings wrapped around the neck bones. 27 years in the Arizona soil have destroyed most possibilities for DNA identification. But forensic anthropologist Dr. Laura Fulginiti has one more technique to try: skull photograph superimposition. By overlaying Dianne's final photograph onto the skull, she is able to match distinctive dental features. The identification is certain. After nearly 3 decades, Dianne Keidel has been found. Dianne Keidel, now 61, is arrested and charged with murder. the man who has terrorized his family for decades, finally faces judgment for his crimes. At trial, Lori's testimony is devastating in its quiet power. She describes not just her mother's murder, but years of violence and threats that kept her silent. The jury listens in stunned silence as she recounts her father's systematic destruction of her family, murder, fire, and decades of psychological torture. The evidence is overwhelming. The concrete tomb, the skeletal remains, the terrified daughter's courage to finally speak the truth. In 1995, Dianne Keidel is convicted and sentenced to life in prison. Lori Romanek stands today as a survivor of unimaginable trauma. She lost her mother to murder, 2 siblings to fire, and her childhood to terror. But she found the courage to speak truth to power, to give her mother the justice she deserved. The process of revealing the truth has taken everything from her. Her relationship with surviving family members fractures under the weight of the revelation. Some refuse to believe their father capable of such evil. Others blame her for destroying the family's carefully constructed facade. But Lori knows she made the only choice her conscience would allow. She reflects that her father will meet his judgment upon his death. And she prays for him, while knowing he must answer to his Creator for destroying the beautiful wife and children given to him. The concrete has been broken. The secret has been revealed. And somewhere in the Arizona desert, Dianne Keidel can finally rest in peace, knowing that her daughter's love proved stronger than her killer's threats. The truth, buried for 27 years beneath concrete and fear, has finally come to light. A 5-year-old girl's terrifying witness has become a grown woman's courageous testimony, proving that some secrets are too heavy to carry alone, and some crimes too heinous to remain hidden forever. In the end, love conquered fear, and justice prevailed over silence.